Hi guys, welcome to my final book haul of 2025, and it is not insubstantial. To be honest, I have 35 books that I'm going to be talking to you guys about, and in the first book haul that I did, which is the only other book haul that I've done this year, I had 28 books, so that is not too bad. But I will say that I do, if you're familiar with these hauls, you already know, but I don't include the books that I receive in monthly subscription boxes in my hauls, just because while some of those books are really anticipated releases for me that I would have picked up anyway, or I already knew something about, a lot of them are ones that I've never heard of, especially because I am a rep for a couple of subscription boxes, or the reason why I'm subscribed to that subscription is because I want to receive books that I don't know very much about and get outside of my comfort zone a little bit in that regard. And so when it comes to a haul video, I don't really have very much to tell you about those books unless I just read out the synopsis, which I already did in the unboxing video where I opened them for you. So feel free to check out my unboxings if you want any information on those kinds of books. But what you have in this video is essentially everything else that I've acquired since I think the middle of June was my last book haul. So as usual, I will be splitting this video down into places where I acquired these books from. So I have a reasonable, like a small, respectable stack of books that I have bought brand new. I have slightly larger but still respectable stack of books that I have bought brand new from subscription box companies. So they're like my special editions. I have a small amount of books that were gifted to me over the last few months. And then I have this, which is all of the books that were sent to me by the publishers in these last few months. Now this is the biggest stack that we're going to be going through today, and this is the first time that we have had a stack of books from the publishers that is this large. Normally I have 1 or 2 books max in a book haul, but I have been afforded a lot of opportunities from the publishing industry over the last few months that I'm incredibly grateful for. I've been going to a lot of things like events. I also have become an ambassador for a couple of imprints of some of the big publishing houses, one of which is Penguin Michael Joseph, one of which you will be hearing about very soon, and that's all very exciting. And that does come with like review copies or prominent releases from that publishing house, which is how we have acquired such a large stack. Now I do not take this for granted at all. I am very, very grateful for the opportunities that have been afforded me recently, and we have a lot of books, like upcoming releases, recent releases, and other things to be talking about today. Now it's also a great time to remind you that if you would like to check out any of the books that I talk about today, or if you would like to grab any for yourself, I am an affiliate for 2 online book retailers. One is Sci-fi, which is obviously like a sci-fi, fantasy and manga store. They also have secondhand copies available on there, which is really cool. And also Books Please, which covers literally every genre. So if you would like to purchase any of these from either of those 2 places, you can use my code Becca and the Books, which will get you a 5% I think discount on your order, and I will receive a small commission from your purchase. But I think we will start with our smallest stack of books to warm us up, which are the ones that have been gifted to me over this period. So the first one is from the lovely Teresa, who is one of my patrons, and Teresa sent me To You, Dear One, which is the latest installment in the Orange manga series. Now I actually didn't know that this was released until a couple of months ago. I don't know what this is about as well, like this installment, but the manga series is a contemporary one, but it has a little bit of a sci-fi twist because it is following this girl who receives a letter from her future self saying that there is a new boy who is about to be transferred into her class, and if she doesn't do something about it, then in the future that her future self is writing from, that boy is not going to be in their friendship group anymore. So then she takes it upon herself to do all that she can to make sure that this guy sticks around. It is one that deals heavily with like mental health, depression, suicide, but also it has a really wholesome outlook on this whole like friendship group that is a part of this series. So there is the 2 big thick bind-ups of Orange, and then there is also another slim one like this, and then this is the latest release. I thought that this was done. I wasn't expecting this. I am excited to get into it, but I do think I kind of want to reread Orange before I do. So thank you very much to Teresa for gifting this to me, and it'll help to bump it up my priority list a little bit. After my summer Zanzibar Trova trip, the wonderful Ali, who was a traveler on my Thailand trip last year and also Zanzibar this year did gift me a couple of books. While I'm here as well, because you're just getting all of the reminders, there are I think 7 or 8 spaces left on my South Korea Trover trip for next spring if you guys want to check it out. I'm very excited about that. We're going to Busan and Seoul. There's lots of like super touristy things on the itinerary, but also some more like slower soaking up the culture kind of moments, which I'm also hyped for. That is always linked in my description box as well, and I think the deadline for joining us maybe like February time if you're interested. But Ali sent me 2 very different books. The first one is a true crime, which is The Fact of a Body by Alexandria Marzono Lesnovich. This one is about a law student, I think, yes, who is working on a death row hearing case for a convicted murderer and a child molester. But as she digs deeper and deeper into the case, she finds some similarities between the case that this guy has been convicted for, but also another one. I like true crime in podcast format. I also like me a true crime documentary, but I've never explored true crime in book format. I think it was last year I was listening to a lot of non-fiction audiobooks. I don't listen to a whole ton or read a whole ton of non-fiction at all. There is one more non-fiction in this haul though, but when I do like an audiobook, and I thought because true crime is something that I consume outside of books, it might be interesting to pick up a true crime book and see what I think. And this one was recommended to me by Gwynne from Literary Diversions, who does read quite a bit of true crime, as one that would particularly be interesting to me. Ali also sent me The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Katherine Arden. I love The Bear and the Nightingale, which is the Winter Night trilogy by Katherine Arden. This one is a little bit different, which is why I hadn't yet picked it up, because I think it's like a World War I story. Yes, it's set in 1917 and 1918. War fiction is not for me. I'm not a great lover of historical fiction in general, but there are specific time periods that I definitely don't read. That tends to be like war fiction, and also the Victorian era are like 2 big ones that I don't really have much interest in. But I do really like Katherine Arden, so I did want to give this one a try. This one is the story of 2 boys, I think from different sides of the war. One is Canadian and the other one is German, and the Canadian one I think is the one that we follow, and he wakes up trapped, I think maybe after an explosion, and he's trapped with this German soldier, and they both have to work together to get out of their predicament. And then our other character is Laura, who I think is a nurse, and the reason why, I think she's maybe volunteering as a nurse, and the reason why is because she's trying to find her brother, who I think is this Canadian soldier who was thought to be dead. So thank you very much to Ali for sending these 2 my way. And the last of the gifted ones is from Deb, who actually passed this book along to me in Zanzibar, because I have the first book in this series in a small hardback, but in the UK it's not super easy to find the second book that matches. So Deb gifted me a copy from the US, and that is This Wicked Fate by Callie Hart. This is the sequel to a book that I really thought I wasn't gonna like. I read it for Shelve It or Scrap It, and I really did think it was going to be an easy unhaul, but I really enjoyed it. It's just a duology, so there's just the 2 books, but book 1 is following a girl who lives in Brooklyn, and she has this magical ability where plants are very attuned to her, like she can help them to grow. She's also immune to poison, and so one day she finds out that she's about to inherit an estate from an aunt that she actually had no idea existed. So she goes out to find out what this estate is, and it is this big sprawling crumbling manor that has an apothecary inside it, but also a poison garden. So she starts to tend this garden, and as she's getting used to the local community, she realizes how integral this garden and this apothecary are to the local town. But also she has a few coveted items within her garden that throws her into peril when people come looking for them. For the special editions that I picked up recently, I just have one from Goldsborough, which is 3 Shattered Souls by Mike Holland. This one is the 3rd book in the 5 Broken Blades series, which is one that I actually really enjoy. It is following this group of like down and out characters who really don't have much left to live for. They're kind of hopeless and hanging on by a thread, and they are assembled to assassinate the emperor because they each have a unique skill. So we have like a thief, a mercenary, somebody with this like seemingly magical ability, and they are all thrown together. There's romance in here, there's hijinks, there's betrayal. It's a multi-perspective fantasy, and the audiobooks are really good. From Fairy Loot, I picked up 2 books. The first one is, well actually, if we talk about what I've bought within these months. There's more than this. These are just the ones that have been delivered from Fairy Loot in this time period. So we have Human Rights by Juno Dawson. This one is the final book in the Her Majesty's Royal Coven series. I'm so excited to read this book. That series is following a group of witches who grew up together, and before this series starts there is a war between the witches and the warlocks of the world, which happens in these women's like early 20s, and it leaves them with a lot of different scars, and they've kind of all grown up and grown into different roles since then. But one of them is the High Priestess of Her Majesty's Royal Coven, and she gets in touch with her childhood friend Neve, who is working as a vet, because she has found a child who she believes is going to be responsible for a prophecy that says that the sullied child is going to summon the demon that heralds the end of days. And so Helena contacts Neve and asks if she can rehabilitate this child to avoid this prophecy coming true. I also picked up The Undercutting of Rosie and Adam by Megan Bannon. This is a book haul of final books. We have a lot of final books in series that I've gone through, but this one, well, I think this is the final. I think that this is a trilogy. This is a series of like fantasy rom-com standalones from Megan Bannon. This one is obviously following Rosie and Adam, but I actually don't too much about it outside of that. One of them is an immortal demigod, and the other one is a portal inventor called Dr. Adam Lee. So this is obviously a romance between the two of them. These books are more rom-coms than they are fantasy stories. The fantasy world kind of just adds a little bit of flavor to the romance, but I learned from the first book not to think too deeply about the world building and just to kind of like roll with the fun romance vibes, which definitely worked in my favor with book one. And then they also deal with some like more deeper personal topics as well, which I do really enjoy in a romance. It adds a bit of substance, you know. And then we actually have quite a lot from Illumicrate, mainly because I bought an entire series in a stunning edition, which may be my favorite thing from this haul. But before we get into those, we have Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood. You all know by now I have never read a full-length Ali Hazelwood book that I have not given a 5 stars to, and I'm hoping that there are no exceptions to that rule. This one I don't know very much about because Ali Hazelwood pretty much is just an auto by author for me at this point, but I know that it is an age gap romance between a woman in her like early 20s, and I think that the guy is like in his mid to late 30s. He works in biotech. She is like a struggling grad student, and they know that this relationship is kind of doomed because of the power imbalances and the age gap, but like they're drawn together regardless. Then for the series in question, the one that I could not resist and I do not regret, and that is the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb. This is one of my favorite series of all time. I'm a big Robin Hobb fan, and these editions are just beautiful. So we have book 1, which is Assassin's Apprentice. Book 2, my favorite one, is Royal Assassin, and then book 3 is Assassin's Quest. My favorite thing about these is how the pages all line up to make bookkeep, and these are just like a vanity purchase. I will never read these. They have beautiful end papers, beautiful under dust jacket, like naked hardcovers, and they will just live on my shelf looking beautiful forever as my second set. No, these are my only vanity set for Robin Hobb, because the illustrated ones are readable with the illustrations. These are just for aesthetics. If you guys don't know about the Farseer trilogy, wow, welcome to my channel. This is an adult epic fantasy series. It's the start of like a 16 book series that alternates between different areas of the world, but one character that we keep coming back to is Fitzchivalry Farseer, who is the bastard son of the prince in waiting, Prince Chivalry. So when he's 6 years old, his maternal grandfather brings him to the keep and says, like, you're going back to your father, like, you're a financial burden on me, I don't want you. But when Fitz arrives at Bookkeep, he finds out that his father has fled in shame at having been discovered as being like the father of a bastard, and so nobody really knows what to do with him, and he's taken in by the stable master, who was Chivalry's best friend. Like, they went on war campaigns together, and he's raised in the stables, but the king sees a unique potential in Fitz to walk in both worlds, the world of the royalty as a bastard prince, but also the role of the common people. And so he starts training Fitz to become the royal assassin and carry out dirty tasks for the crown. Poor sweet boy Fitz, he never deserved any of this. And then the last one that I have in terms of special editions from subscription boxes is The Jazad Crown by Sarah Hashem. This one is the sequel to the Jazad Heir. Once again, I think that this is a last book in a series. I think it's just a duology. I did begrudgingly get the Illumicrate add-on dust jackets as well for this because the regular Illumicrate editions was just like pretty much the normal cover. But this one is an enemies to lovers story. It's set in this world where all of the kingdoms used to have magic, and then another kingdom was created to police the magic of the rest of them. The magic in this world eventually kind of disappeared in all of the kingdoms except one, and this policing kingdom stepped in and essentially eradicated the entire population of this remaining country with magic because they were abusing their power, threatening everybody else, and just not making a comfy situation for the people around them. Now, our main character is the heir to that kingdom, and she was kind of secreted away when her entire family was assassinated, and she is just trying to live a quiet life by herself. But one day her powers are discovered and brought to the attention of the prince, like the heir of this policing kingdom, who then takes her to be his champion in this tournament that they have for a reason that I cannot remember. It's been a while since I read The Jazad Heir. I do want to reread that one before I carry on with this because I really enjoyed it, but I don't remember the most about it, so I want to revisit it. But I'm excited to get into this one as well. Very good romantasy or fantasy romance in the classic style that we were familiar with in like 2015 to 2019. So like fantasy first, but really compelling romance. Would recommend. For the regular old, yeah, these are all just like standard editions that I've purchased. We have A Time of Blood and A Time of Dread by John Gwynne, which are the two most recent books for Catch Up Book Club. We've already had the live show for A Time of Dread. The live show for A Time of Blood is going to be on the 16th of November on Deb's channel, in case you missed that it was postponed by a week. And then I will need to get my hands on A Time of Courage for our January live show, as well as the Bloodsworn saga, because in case you missed it, we are going to be adding on that extra John Gwynne trilogy to the end of the Faith Fall Along, and I recently posted my announcement video for that if you want to check it out and get involved. But this is a spin-off series to The Faithful and the Fallen. It's set, I think, around 130 years after the events of The Faithful and the Fallen. The whole equilibrium of this world, like the state that this world is in when you start, is very dependent on things that happen right at the end of The Faithful and the Fallen, so you can't really talk about this series without spoilers. But to be very vague about it, it's adult epic fantasy. It's inspired by like British legend and lore from like the late Iron Age, and after the events of The Faithful and the Fallen, we have some new species in the world that were up until like the beginning of The Faithful and the Fallen. These were all things that were kind of thought of as legend and myth. However, throughout The Faithful and the Fallen, we find out that a lot of these creatures, these species, are real, and we have an excess of some of those species in the world after the end of The Faithful and the Fallen, and this has caused a great upheaval in the political climate. It's very, very different to how the world was 100 years ago, and some people are struggling to adjust to the political climate that we have going on at the beginning of here, which hints at a lot of corruption and blurs the lines between good and evil. It's a multi-perspective series. There's a lot of animal companions in here. There's a lot of battle scenes, some really great characters that you can root for, and I'm having a really good time with it. I just finished A Time of Blood actually and liked it a lot. I went to a sign-in for R.F. Kuang. The sign-in was for Catabasis, but I do have a Fairy Loot edition of that. It was one of their monthly subscription books, but I wanted to meet R.F. Kuang, so I picked up the only book that I hadn't read or didn't own from her, which was Yellowface. I have recently read this. I am going to be unhauling it. I enjoyed it. I just don't think I'm ever going to revisit it. But this is like a dark satirical novel about a woman, a white woman, who steals her Asian friend's manuscript. She's essentially hanging out with this friend, and her friend chokes to death on a pancake, and just before she dies, they were discussing how she's just finished her most recent manuscript, but she has such a secretive writing process that she didn't tell anybody anything about this book. So our main character, who has released a book that like completely flopped, steals her friend's manuscript, heavily edits it, has it published, and then goes along and like promotes it and publishes more books like off the back of her friend's success, all the while convincing herself that like she's done the right thing. Would definitely recommend the audiobook for this one as well. I would say very good time. Pokes fun at the publishing industry a lot, which actually was like quite fun to read, but just now that I've read it, I don't think I'll ever pick it up again. I also was invited to a Fairy Loot event to celebrate Maggie Stiefvater's 2025 release, which was The Listeners. So I picked it up because I was going to meet Maggie Stiefvater and have it signed. That was a really cool event actually, and Maggie Stiefvater is a very cool person. I have read The Wolves of Mercy Falls, and as somebody who doesn't really like wolves and doesn't really like paranormal, I actually really like that series because Maggie Stiefvater's writing is so atmospheric. Also a series that has really great audiobooks, but this one I think maybe her adult debut. I think it's a little bit historical. Yeah, it's set in 1942, which not one of my favorite time periods, but I'm relying on Maggie Stiefvater's writing to kind of sell this one for me. So this one is set in an old hotel. I feel like it has an element of glitz about it, and it says in 1942, war comes to the Avalon dressed in fine furs and government suits. Under the State Department's watchful eye, the Guilfoyle heir welcomes 300 enemy diplomats and Nazi sympathizers, and our main character June, who I think is the manager of this hotel, must play host. This is not something I would pick up based on its synopsis alone. I do admit that. I also don't like paranormal, and Maggie Stiefvater really sold like a werewolf romance to me, so I feel like she might be able to sell this one to me as well. In August, I went to an author event for Callie Hart, and normally when I go to author events, I just book the ticket. But this time, I decided to get the book with the ticket, and honestly, I have regrets. For more than one reason. I have this book on KU, so I didn't need to get a physical copy of it, so I have regrets in that regard. But also, I'm pretty sure that when they announced the Callie Hart event for Quicksilver, they advertised it with the new covers, which had just been announced at around the time the tickets went on sale. And I'm pretty sure that is the reason why I booked the book with the ticket, because I wanted the new cover. But I got the old cover, and I don't like it, and I don't want it. So I am kind of salty about this one. I do want to read this book, but it's not a book that I needed to purchase, and I do regret it. But anyway, it's here now. This one I think is a fairy romance. It also has something to do with alchemy. It's a very, very popular romance anyway, which sometimes I love, sometimes I hate. The guy in here, the way that Callie Hart spoke about him makes me really want to read this series. Otherwise, I just had kind of like a lukewarm interest in it and just wanted to see what the hype was about. There's alchemy, and metal is something to do with magic, which is why it's called Quicksilver. And then the final book that I purchased ties into a couple of the books that I've received from the publisher. So let me just get myself organized here, because I went to an event for Penguin Michael Joseph. It was the Siren Summer Party, so there was like a selection of books that we could choose from to take home. We also received like a goodie bag that had a couple of books in as well, like at the end of the night. But one of the books that I chose was The Everking by L.J. Andrews. I read this and I loved it. So the time that I read this was, I think, just before, it was the week before the sequel was released. These ones are indie like self-pub books that are being republished by Penguin Michael Joseph, so they're coming out in like quick succession. And so I wanted to pick up the sequel, which is the one that I paid for myself, which is The Everqueen, but I had a little bit of a hard time finding it because it wasn't being stocked anywhere. Like I went out on day of release and couldn't find it. So then Penguin Michael Joseph, knowing my struggle, sent me book 3 when that was released, I think this month or last month, which is The Mist Thief. So this series is a bit of a pirate romantasy, although we do follow different characters and couples throughout this series, and I'm not sure if all of them are pirates. But in The Everking, we are following the King of the Everfae, who are like the Sea Fae, and we are also following the Princess of the Land Fae. So this is actually a spin-off series to an L.J. Andrews series that I haven't read, which I think is the Broken Kingdoms one, and that one is a 9-book series that follows 3 different couples. I think each of them have a trilogy, and some of those couples are the parents to some of the characters that we follow in this one. But essentially, some of the conflict that happens in that series resulted in a barrier being put in place between the Land Fae and the Sea Fae. So the Everking is trapped in the Ever. He cannot come out onto land, but he believes that there is like a little kernel of his father's power that is in possession of the King of the Land Fae, and he would like to get that back so that he can cure a plague that is decimating his lands. So our main character accidentally breaks this barrier, keeping the Everking imprisoned, and he comes to land, and being unable to find the Land King, he kidnaps his daughter and assumes that the Land King is going to come and offer the kernel of power in exchange for his daughter. However, the Everking quickly realizes that this kernel of power is not going to be the answer to his problems, and so together, as attraction grows between them, they have to band together to figure out what is causing this plague upon the land. So books 1 and 2 follow follow those same characters. Book 3 follows a different character in this world, and then book 4, which is going to be released next year, I think follows different characters once again, and we have 6 books in total in this series when it's complete. This is the second series that I've read from LJ Andrews, or started, I guess. I read Broken Souls and Bones and loved that one as well. So definitely an author that I would recommend if you have similar taste in fantasy romance to me. And going through the rest of the books that were sent to me by the publisher, I have just broken them down into which publishing house each of the books is from, and the majority of them are from Penguin Michael Joseph, which makes sense because I am, as I said, an ambassador for them. 5 of these books are ones that I did pick up at that Siren Summer party I was talking about, including some books that are already released and some upcoming releases. So the finished copies that I picked up were All the Devils by Caitlin Wilson. This was a 2024 release that has just been released in paperback this year, and it is I think like a supernatural dark academia story about a girl whose sister dies, but when she goes to her funeral, she discovers that either it's like a different body in the casket or there's no body there at all. So she enrolls in this prestigious academy that her sister was attending to try and find out what happens to her, and she finds a haven of secret societies, ancient magic and demons. The other finished copy I picked up was The Brave and the Reckless by Delan Dyer. This one is kind of a cowboy romance, although I don't know if it exactly counts because it's following a girl who drops out of medical school and she gets a job at a Wild West theme park, which she's very reluctant to do, especially when she starts to become attracted to the lawless cowboy character at this theme park. So yes, cowboys, but also like pretend cowboys for a theme park, if that makes sense. For the arcs, one of them has just been released, which was Firstborn of the Sun by Marvelous Michael Anson. This one is a epic fantasy, like a multi-perspective epic fantasy story. It's set in a world where everybody has this specific kind of magic except for our main character who was born without it, and her best friend has a very strong magical ability, but he is selected to join a holy order to become a priest, and our main character is very against the priesthood because she knows that they're somehow responsible for the death of one of her family members. And so when she finds out that he's going to be joining this holy order, which involves a ceremony that strips him from his magic, she calls on the forbidden magic of her blood to save him from this fate. I then have a couple of arcs for January next year. The first one is Hot Desk by Lauren Dickerman. I picked this one up because it's like a office rivals romance, and my favorite contemporary romance is The Hazing Game by Sally Thorne. Aside from that, I have no idea what this one is about. It doesn't actually even have the plot on the back. It has a like little segment from a conversation between the two of them. Oh, here we go. So this does kind of seem like The Hating Game because the start of the synopsis says Rebecca Bloom knows 2 things about Ben Heath. He's a new editor at a rival publishing division and he thinks she has terrible desk sharing skills. So sign me up. And then the other arc I have for January is The Book of Blood and Roses by Annie Summerlee. This one I think is a young adult sapphic vampire romance story, but I think one of our main characters is a vampire hunter who goes undercover at this school or university that humans and vampires attend. And then I have a bunch of finished copies from Penguin Michael Joseph. They did send me a slightly early finished copy of Alchemized by Senlin Yu. I'm not going to be keeping this one because I do also have the Fairy Loot edition, but I might use this one as my reading copy because it's such a hefty book. This one is just like the standard edition. This one is a dark fantasy that is set in this world after a war, and I think it's a war between alchemists and necromancers. Our main character is an alchemist. It's many years after this war has ended and she has just been discovered by the necromancers, but she has no memories of the years between the end of the war and the present timeline. Now, she was supposed to be just like a general healer, but because she has been hidden for all of this time and she doesn't actually have any memories, the necromancers believe that she's actually hiding things from them, and so they torture her essentially to try and discover what it is that they think she's hiding from them. And then I did receive an autumn box from Penguin Michael Joseph, which was very exciting. I'm very excited about one of the books especially that came in that box, which is If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. This is one that was on my radar because it has a beautiful autumnal cover, and I also saw Steph from Stephanie Bookish, who has recently changed her channel name to I think Fall Into Steph, read this and really enjoy it, which we have a similar taste in romantasy, so I feel like contemporary romance we may line up as well. But this one is an adult contemporary romance, obviously a very autumnal one set in the 90s, series, and it is like a boy next door kind of story. I think the two main characters are neighbors. There is one book that came in the autumn box that has an absolutely beautiful cover. Unfortunately though, I'm not going to be keeping it. I wanted to talk to you guys about it here, but it has a trope that I just really don't like, so I don't think I'm going to enjoy it, and that is A Pack for Autumn by Amelia Emerson. This one is an autumnal shapeshifter, like reverse harem, polyamorous romance, which you all know I don't really like reverse harem or why choose romances, and I also don't love shapeshifter romances, so I unfortunately don't think that this is going to work for me, but it is absolutely beautiful, and I know there's a bunch of you guys that would really love this one. And then the final book that was in that box is a fantasy romance, and it is The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen. This one is set in a world with the Greek gods. I think Zeus is in here, also Hades. Those are the ones that are named in the synopsis. And there is a competition, I think, called the Crucible, which determines which god is going to rule Olympus. And for the first time ever, Hades has thrown his hat into the ring. However, the gods don't fight it out themselves. They make mortals fight for them. And I think our main character is one of the mortals that is chosen to compete. And then the most recent book that I received from Penguin Michael Joseph is, I'm pretty sure, a fantasy romance, and it was released right at the beginning of November, which is Ship of Spells by H. Leighton Dixon. This one I'm a little unsure about because seafaring books don't always work for me. Sometimes they do, like with the Everking, and sometimes they really don't, like in literally any Little Mermaid retelling. But this one, it says like one ship, one captain, one choice. I think the captain of the ship is an elven mage. It actually does sound really good considering it's a seafaring book, which doesn't always work for me. But essentially this elven mage, I think the original ship that she was in charge of sank, and she thinks that she's going to be killed for it, but she ends up captaining a mythical sentient ship, which also has worked for me in the past with the live ship traders. I'm excited to try this one out because the seafaring puts me off, but the synopsis actually excites me, which is a weird way to feel about this one. Okay, so I actually lied to you because that was not the last Penguin Michael Joseph book, because I have Operation Bounce House by Matt Dinnerman, which is, I think it's a standalone by Matt Dinnerman, who is the author of course, Dungeon Crawler Carl. This one is released in February next year, and it seems kind of in the same vein as Dungeon Crawler Carl, which is exciting. So this is following a guy who owns a ranch on a planet. I'm pretty sure it's like a ranch full of like agriculture robots or something like that. But then this big intergalactic corporation decides that they are going to start an eviction protocol on this planet, which essentially means exterminating all life on it so that they can reboot it. And they charge people on Earth for the opportunity to design the war machines that are going to exterminate life on this planet. And our main character has to stand up with the other residents of the planet to kind of fight off these war machines to keep control of the place where he lives. So thank you very much to Penguin Michael Joseph for that stack. I have also received a couple of books from Solaris over the last few months. Solaris are very good at sending me books that I'm very, very likely to enjoy, so I'm excited about both of these. The first one is Cry Voidbringer by Elaine Ho. This one is another early November release. All of these that I have that have been released at the beginning of November, I am hoping to do a reading vlog for very, very soon, so keep your eyes open for that. But this one is a sci-fi with imperialist themes, where children have been taken from their homes, taken from their cultures, and trained to become soldiers for this like imperialist army. Our main character was one of these children, and so she has dedicated her life to try and eradicate this system. And one day she finds a child who has very unique powers that could be the key to removing their imperialist overlords for good. I also have The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas. I actually very recently read The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas, where the haunted house elements didn't really work for me, but I really, really enjoyed the writing, so I'm excited to try this one. This one was a early October release, and this one is following a woman. It's set in the 1700s, this one. The Hacienda is the 1800s. This one is 1765, and it is following a woman who I believe is possessed. The woman in question is, of course, Alba Diaz. I'm pretty sure all of Isabel Cañas's books are Gothic, and they all have a romantic element, and I'm pretty sure that the romantic element in here is the cousin of the man that Alba Diaz is betrothed to. But I think that he starts to notice the signs of her possession and tries to help her like do something about it. The last of the early November releases that is hopefully going to be in that vlog that I'm hopefully going to make is Blackthornne by G.T. Geisinger. This one is from Book Break, so thank you very much to Book Break for sending this my way. It is a Bramble release, and honestly this was pitched as a gothic romance, and that is all I needed to hear. I am actually on the blog tour for this for the 14th of November, where I'm going to be posting on my Instagram, so if you want like a first look, my first thoughts on this book, then that is where you're going to be able to find them, because that is definitely going to be done before the vlog, the hypothetical vlog, is going to be ready. But this one is, I think, is pretty spicy actually, because I was flicking through it and I did notice that it has content warnings at the beginning. It says it's a page-turning gothic romance that contains dark themes and scenes that may not be suitable for everyone, including graphic sex, non-con and dub-con sex, explicit language, possible harm to a child, human sacrifice, disturbing imagery, the occult, religion, violence, murder, horror, incest, blood, death, grief and gore. So I'm not sure that I knew exactly what I was signing myself up for when I requested Blackthornne, but in terms of the synopsis, it was following this girl who is part of this like prestigious family called the Blackthornne family, and I'm pretty sure like they're from, do you know, like one of those small towns in books where there are these like influential families that run the town. She is a member of the Blackthornes and she's since left home, but she has to come back because I think her mother died. Yeah, after her mother died she fled. But no, she comes back for her grandmother's funeral, but she realizes that her grandmother's body is missing from the family graveyard, and so she suspects this other influential family in the town, the Crofts, and they are the people that she also blames for her mother's suspicious death. But the problem, the spanner in the works, shall we say, is that her first love is actually the eldest son of the Crofts, and that is something that we have to navigate as she tries to get to the bottom of what happened to her grandmother's body, and I suppose as well what happened to her mother. And then the final book for this haul is the other non-fiction I was talking about, which is The Chain. This one I picked up at the Muslim Romance Festival. We were given a goodie bag like when we arrived, and there was like a blind date with a book in every bag, all from like Muslim authors. So this one is a non-fiction about cycles of relationships and the way that women fall into the same roles over and over again in relationships, and how this allows them to be exploited by men in the same way over and over again. I think it's partially a memoir, but also partially dives into the way that society kind of like supports and advocates for this cycle to keep continuing. It's not something that I ever would have picked up if I hadn't have received it. Like I said, I don't read a ton of non-fiction, but when non-fiction falls into my lap, I do always give it a go. And sometimes I'm surprised because this is not a topic that I have a specific interest in. It's not something that I especially know anything about, but for that reason, I think I'm actually going to really like it because it's going to be teaching me something I don't know, and I find that interesting. So thank you very much to Orion for this one. So those are all of the books that I've hauled in the last 5 months. I know that this is falling a little bit early for it to be the last haul of the year, because I know I am gonna haul like a few books between now and the end of December, because I have a few very prominent, very exciting November releases that I don't have yet, that are on pre-order, that are coming to me. So there are going to be a few more books that rack up, but I do have a lot of like end of year content and preparing for next year content coming in December. So this is kind of just where this haul fit in my schedule to actually have it in before the end of the year. So I hope that you guys don't mind. But down in my comments, let me know what the most recent book that you hauled was. And if you would like to let me know that you were here but you don't feel like you have anything to say, leave me a chain emoji in the comments, and I have just checked, it does exist. But aside from that, guys, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, my Instagram and my Patreon if you want to follow me on any of those. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye.
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go when nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.